This woman blinded her sugar daddy when he refused to pay her. 26-year-old Kaylee Renee Medina met a 61-year-old man on Seeking a Dating app, which is where older men meet younger women. They both ended up going on their first date, they hit it off, and according to the man, nothing unusual happened. They stopped seeing each other, but later that month, Kaylee randomly showed up to his house at around 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. He let her inside, they talked, drank some wine, when suddenly Kaylee asked him for $2,000. He told her that he didn't have that kind of money, and that's when she freaked out and began destroying everything in his house, including his TV and his walls. She then grabbed detergent and poured it over his head, burning his eyes and then blinding him. And it only gets worse. She then stole his iPhone, passport, surveillance camera, and Dyson hairdryer before leaving. He was rushed to the hospital and ended up having chemical burns to his eyes. But police knew exactly who Kaylee was because this wasn't her first time being arrested. She was previously charged with a DUI and aggravated assault multiple times. She was eventually arrested, but then was released on a $20,000 bond. Which makes me wonder, how bad did you need the $2,000 if you can bail yourself out of jail for $20,000?
A YouTuber went partying for 6 days while leaving her 20-month-old daughter at home alone. Little Asaya Kuti was left to starve all by herself. As part of her 18th birthday celebrations, Verfi Kuti traveled to London and Coventry partying and acting like a carefree teenager. She left with her boyfriend on December 5, 2019, and didn't return home until December 11. CCTV covering Kuti's home showed she had left Asaya alone in the flat for 5 days, 21 hours and 58 minutes. Footage was uncovered of her dancing at a concert December 8 as the DJ announced her birthday.
I got one message for you right now.
When she returned home, Kuti spent 3 hours in the flat before calling for emergency services and said her baby wasn't waking up. Sadly, nothing could be done to save Asaya. The autopsy concluded the cause of death was starvation and influenza, with reported signs of dehydration and severe nappy rash. Kuti first claimed she had been with her child at the flat all the time except for one visit she made with her to London. She later admitted to the manslaughter of her daughter 20-month-old Asaya Kuti. CCTV at the sheltered accommodation where she had been living in the months before showed 6 other significant occasions when Kuti had left her baby alone for hours at a time. In August 2021, she was sentenced to 9 years in prison.
Scary facts that will blow your mind. Part 3. It's been speculated by scientists that the light at the end of the tunnel when you're dying is actually you in the hospital being reborn into a new body. You're only given moments to sift through your memories and leave everything else behind. This, of course, is just a theory, but what if? Let me know what you think. Like and follow for more.
These are 3 more of the most disturbing facial reconstructions I have ever come across on the internet. So originally, this was only ever known as the suitcase body. It's a reconstructive sketch. It was a body of a young girl who was found in Oregon, stuffed inside of a suitcase, and nobody knew who did it. Despite the severe decomp on the body, it was actually a pretty effective sketch because it did positively identify the body as Jenny Gomez and eventually led to the man who did this. And we've also got this. This is the Kane County John Doe. So he was found in 1994 by a group of hikers in Utah. Skeletal records kind of put him somewhere between his 30s to his 50s, and nobody has ever claimed him. But what's so unnerving about the reconstruction are the eyes. I have never seen a reconstruction that has such a focus in the eyes. You usually don't see that. Then we have the Arondika Jane Doe. She was found by a boy who was digging in his backyard when he found her buried in a shallow grave. They think she could be young, but again, no one has ever claimed her.
The 13-year-old honor student's son kills mom, stabbing her multiple times in the neck, and then leaves his 14-day-old little sister alive.
Case is absolutely baffling. We have no idea what the motive is. This is about 11:30 at night. The son, as you said, 13 years old, is awake. Both the baby and mom are asleep. He goes into the bedroom, allegedly stabs mom to death. Like I said, leaves the baby untouched. And then he takes the pictures, sends it to someone he barely even knows. I mean, he says the word friend in the 911 call, and when the dispatcher asks for a name, he says he doesn't know the friend's actual name. It's just someone that he plays games with online.
Haunting facts about serial killers that you'll want to declared him to be sane, and he was set free, even though he stated that he planned on killing again. He was released in 1998, and no one knows where he is or what he's doing.
Imagine allowing your daughter to sleep over at her friend's house and then finding out that her friend's dad drugged her before going to bed. So this is 57-year-old Michael Maiden, and his 12-year-old daughter hosted a sleepover at her house, inviting 3 of her friends. He was the adult that was supposed to be supervising them on that night, but instead he drugged them with a mango smoothie. On that night, before they went to bed, he gave each girl a mango smoothie, and one remembers there being white chunks inside her drink. One of the girls only drank a little bit because it tasted bad and looked weird, but all 3 other girls drank the entire thing. Later that night, all the girls blacked out except for the one girl who didn't drink much of the smoothie. She actually pretended to sleep. She witnessed Michael get close and touch one of the other girls that were sleeping, and that's when she got scared and called her parents and begged them to come pick her up. This 12-year-old told her parents what happened, and they went ahead and contacted all these kids' parents to tell them like, hey, go pick up your daughters now. When the parents arrived to Michael's house, he made it difficult for them to get their own kids out of that house, but eventually they did, and they were taken to the hospital. It turns out that Michael put sedatives in their smoothies, but he argues that that never happened. One of the girls could barely walk straight or stand on her own when she was leaving the hospital, and they don't really remember what happened before they blacked out.
These are the most evil kids in history. Robert Woodcock was a seemingly normal young boy who was born in 1939 in the Toronto area. He would have a very normal childhood until he hit his teenage years, because it was around this point in the 1950s, once Robert hit his teenage years, that he would go on to kill 4 young children in the Toronto area. But he would only face trial for murder for one of those kids, and after going to trial, he would be found not guilty. The reasoning behind this was that the jury found that he was a psychopath. So Robert got sent to a psychiatric ward where he would relatively stay quiet there for a while. Until 1991, years after he committed those heinous crimes in Toronto, Robert would go on to kill another inmate at the same psychiatric ward that he was at. And finally, we wouldn't be able to talk about a video like this without bringing up the 2 most notorious evil children ever, Robert Thompson and John Venables. You see, Robert and John were 2 seemingly normal 10-year-olds. They did some normal 10-year-old stuff and they got into trouble here and there, but nothing that they ever could have done could have prepared the world for what they were about to do. One day, Robert and John were skipping school and they were at the mall by themselves, just doing normal dumb kid stuff. They were shoplifting and causing problems when they saw a 2-year-old toddler who was by himself. So Robert and John abducted the child. They would take him to the nearby woods by some train tracks where they would do terrible, terrible things to this child. I'm talking mercilessly beating him. And in the end, unfortunately, the child would die. Now look, I know it has to be hard to believe that kids could even do something like this, but it makes a lot of sense for today's video because
Creepiest home camera footage PT.9.
Sliding door to our bedroom was halfway open. That's the scariest part, just not feeling secure in your own home.
The mother of this missing 6-year-old girl has been charged with human trafficking and kidnapping. If you're not already familiar with the ongoing disappearance of 6-year-old Joselyn Smith, well, on February 19th, she vanished from South Africa while she was meant to be in the custody of her mother's boyfriend. This is a very recent ongoing investigation. She only disappeared almost a month ago at this point, and there has been more misinformation spread in this case than I have seen in such a long time, but I really did my best to weed through all the misinformation, and hopefully I'm only going to be delivering the facts in this video. There have been massive searches done and continuing to be done. There have been cadaver dogs, drones, I'm sure even the Navy at this point, and bloody clothes were found in an open field near where Joselyn vanished from. Joselyn's mother, Kelly Smith, has been in the public eye quite a bit. She's done quite a few televised interviews pleading for answers, but people have been suspicious of Kelly and her boyfriend since Joselyn disappeared. As of today, March 17th, Joselyn's own mother, Kelly, is believed to be involved in her own daughter's disappearance. She was charged with human trafficking and kidnapping in her own daughter's case, and as well as 3 other suspects have been arrested along with Kelly's boyfriend. It's being widely reported that Joselyn's mother, Kelly, sold her daughter, which absolutely breaks my heart, but it does make it more likely that Joselyn is still out there alive and could be brought home. I strongly urge anyone who's watching this video to get 6-year-old Joselyn Smith's face out there in any way you can, even if that only means sharing this video or reposting it. I'll continue to update you guys as we learn more. This case reminds me so much of 3-year-old Elijah Vu, who's still currently missing. I'm looking for updates on that, but we haven't really gotten anything else there yet. But let me know what you think of this case in the comments and what case you'd want to see me cover next.
One of the most shocking murders of 2022 is by a doctor, Ronaldo Ortiz, an anesthesiologist out of Dallas. This is surveillance footage of him tampering with IV bags outside of the operating room, into which he allegedly injected poisonous medications. One of his colleagues who used one of these bags to rehydrate herself suffered cardiac arrest and died. It was noticed that after he was depositing these bags, otherwise healthy patients would have cardiac complications that were unexpected. This led to cardiac emergencies in 11 patients and the death of a colleague.
You won't believe what this person found on the dark web. The dark web refers to 80% of the internet that is not accessible through normal internet browsers. And here's why you should never go searching on there. This one person was searching around when they stumbled upon a live bid. Now, he didn't actually realize what they were bidding for, but he was watching it. When the bidding ended, it was revealed that it was for a woman tied to a chair. The winning bidder decided what happened to this girl. It ended up being a torture and murder live stream. To this day, it was never revealed who was behind this or who this poor girl was. That's really sad and messed up. But follow for more sad and messed up content, I guess. Also follow me on YouTube, link in bio.
This cold case needs to get solved. Todd Geep did not die of accidental drowning. He was only 22 years old when he disappeared from a party in 2005. Don't forget to listen to our podcast, The Haunted Detective. If you like true crime and cold cases just like this, we go way into depth with Todd's case. He had been attending a bonfire with 100 other people when he decided to walk the 1.5 miles back to his cousin's house, a route that he knew very well. At 12:47, he called his friend saying that he had had enough. He then proceeded to call a couple other friends over the course of his walk home. All of the calls were very suspicious. At one point, he said to his friend, "I am in the field." Then the call dropped. That was the last time anyone heard from Todd Geep. 1,500 people showed up to search for him. This included a land and air search and dogs. 21 days later, a couple going for a walk saw a body standing upright in a lake just like this. The body was that of Todd Geep. The police automatically jumped to the conclusion that he had accidentally drowned, even though the ME report told a completely different story. He had no water in his lungs and there was nothing indicating that that was his cause of death. To make matters even weirder, he had only lost his life 2 days prior to that, meaning 19 days were completely unaccounted for. What the heck happened? Where was Todd? I want to know what you guys think happened. Bodies don't typically just stand upright like that in bodies of water when the person has passed.
Did you know your favorite characters were most likely almost killed off the shows they were on? Like, Steve Harrington was supposed to die in the first season of Stranger Things, but the showrunners liked him so much they kept him on, and he's not the only one. Eleven was also supposed to die in the first season of Stranger Things. It turns out she was supposed to sacrifice herself at the end of the first season, and then that was just going to be the end of the series. Like, that would be it. It was actually the execs at Netflix that suggested she live and the show continue. Also, I host a podcast of horrors, hauntings, and mysteries, and if you like Stranger Things, you'll probably like this episode. Breaking Bad is another show where a lot of the main characters were set to die off. Like, I'm sure we've all heard about how Jesse was supposed to die in the first season, but the creator just loved him and loved the character so much he decided to keep him on. But did you know that both Hank and Walt Jr. were also supposed to die in the first season?
Hank actually only stayed alive because there was a writer's strike, so they had to extend the plot for as long as humanly possible, and they didn't get around to killing him in the first season. But then Walt Jr. was supposed to be killed by a drug dealer, but they decided that was way too dark, so they ended up keeping him as well. And then this one really tripped me up, but know how Hank was supposed to die in the first season of Barry. They were actually on set shooting the scene where he died, and Bill Hader pulled the plug. He was like, I can't kill this guy just yet. And remember, when it's the first season, the show hasn't come out yet. They don't know who audiences like, so they're just doing this based on instinct. And of course, NoHo Hank ended up being one of the most beloved characters from the series. Anyways, were there any other shows that you loved where your favorite character was not supposed to last that long?
The differences between male and female serial killers. Males typically kill for sexual gratification, whether that's psychological or physical, and their victim's identity matters less. They typically kill strangers. In contrast, 90% of female serial killers know their victims, and they tend to kill for practical or justifiable reasons, at least in their minds, with the most common motivation being financial gain.
So here's the scoop on the top family murders. This family, no one could find them around December of 2019. Family members were asking law enforcement to do wellness check. Law enforcement showed up, knocked on the door, they didn't answer, and so they just left. Until weeks later when they come serve a warrant on this dude for fraud in his medical practice. When they show up, they find out dude has been living in his house with his entire family murdered and all sleeping together in one room. They were drugged with Benadryl, then stabbed. His wife, 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and 4-year-old. When he's first arrested, dude confesses. I don't know if he gave a reason. I've heard stories where he's like, I totally snapped and came to at the police department, but he confessed at one point. But fast forward a year, and now this slimy dude is saying that his wife drugged and killed her kids, drugged and killed herself, and now he's awaiting trial.
The Strange Truth That You Have Never Known, Part 182. If humans hold their breath underwater, they would be nothing compared to the following animal species. On average, an adult human can hold their breath for approximately 1.5 to 2 minutes. Hippos can hold their breath for up to 5 minutes. Dolphins, being mammals and not having gills like fish, can hold their breath for approximately 8 to 10 minutes. However, dolphins need to regularly come to the water surface to take breaths since they do not breathe through gills. Sea lions and penguins can outperform them in this aspect as they can hold their breath underwater for up to 20 minutes. However, you wouldn't believe that the following animal can surpass those mentioned above in terms of breath-holding capability. That animal is the sloth. Yes, a sloth can hold its breath for up to 40 minutes. Interestingly, their speed underwater is 3 times faster than their speed on land. Whales can dive for up to 1.5 hours without needing to breathe. Some individuals have even been recorded diving for nearly 2 hours in search of food in the depths of deep-sea regions. Even longer than that, sea turtles can hold their breath for durations ranging from 4 to 7 hours. The reason sea turtles can hold their breath for such extended periods is because they can absorb oxygen through their skin. And at the top position is the wolf spider, an extraordinary creature that can stay continuously underwater for 40 hours without the need to breathe, thanks to its ability to enter a state of suspended animation.
Washing dishes with Ted Bundy. She had no idea her friend had already led 17 women when this photo was taken. Let's enhance it with sharp AI. Many believe the only reason she was safe was because she was blonde, and Ted Bundy targeted brunettes, as they reminded him of his ex-girlfriend. He reportedly thought about Mert 3 or 24/7s, so even at a birthday party with a smile on his face, are his eyes revealing of who he really is?
A lot of people don't know that the first ever human centipede was actually 3 dogs surgically joined together, and it was meant to be a punishment for the middle dog because it tried to run away from its owner. You should all know by now, whether it's by watching me or by watching the movies, the whole point of the human centipede is joining people together butt to mouth. The crazy doctor who's performing the surgeries in the movie has this idea 6 months before he actually ends up kidnapping anyone. And he decides he wants to take his 3 pet Rottweilers and join them together in a human centipede as a trial run. I love how obvious the Photoshop is. It's very endearing to me. But yes, the bee dog was put here as punishment because it tried to run away, which this logic actually ends up being used later in the movie when he starts kidnapping humans. These dogs apparently did live for a little while. We don't know exactly how long though. However, by the events of the first movie, 6 months later, the dogs are deceased and there is a tombstone in the backyard for all 3 of the dogs as one creature. I think this was a fun idea for the filmmakers to be like, oh yeah, let's say the doctor had a trial run. He had to have tried this somehow. But how are you going to surgically stitch a dog's snout to another dog's ass? Just like anatomically speaking, I don't think it would work, and I think that's why the Photoshop job is so funny. Like, it looks like they're just sniffing. Like, they're not even like actually connected to each other. This has led to some people doing crazy cosplays with their dogs in a human centipede formation. Obviously, this is only one real dog. But yeah, there you go. Another piece of human centipede lore that you did not ask for.
How many people do you think you've killed overall?
I've been in the game for a long time. More than 70 probably.
I mean, I'll have to ask you, what was the most violent thing you've done yourself?
I was taking 2 recruits to do a task that was given to us. These recruits obviously were new. They didn't know what they were doing. They got nervous. They came back into the car and they told me that the people that were there were armed. We pull up near this person, and this person is obviously a rival. The person in the back seat, I was driving, the person in the back seat pulled out a rifle and shot him. He missed the shot, but injured him on the leg. At this moment, the rifle jammed. The recruit was panicking. I jumped out of the car, took the rifle, busted the bullet out and cocked it back in, and I shot him again. This person was still agonizing, trying to drag himself through the pavement. The rifle jammed again, so I basically went up to him and smashed him with the butt of the rifle until his head exploded, and that was it. Jumped back in the car and left. Obviously, there's more things that I've done I'm not willing to discuss at the moment.
This is one of the scariest videos you'll ever see on the internet. It's called Blank Room Soup. And I apologize, it's gonna get gross here. Legend goes that this video was first discovered on the dark web. Later, somebody uploaded it in parts to YouTube. The video starts off with this man being dragged into a room by these 2 weird mascot people. Look how terrifying that is. The man is then forced to eat a bowl of soup. Rumor has it that this soup is actually his family's remains. So he's forced to eat his dead family members. I'm about to show you a clip from it. Trigger warning, it is... This video disgusts me. But if you want to learn more about it, I talk about it in depth on my YouTube channel. Link in bio, it's my latest video. Also, stay off the dark web.
This boy suffered a botched circumcision and was raised as a girl for 13 years. In 1965, David Reimer was born a boy along with his brother in Winnipeg, Canada. But at 8 months, he suffered a botched circumcision and unfortunately, his genitals were accidentally burnt off. While his twin brother was fine, David's damage could not be fixed. So David's parents consulted with Dr. John Money and he suggested that David undergo sex reassignment surgery and be given hormones and instead be raised as a girl. His parents took the advice and changed David's birth name from Bruce to Brenda. Dr. Money believed that David could be easily raised as a girl despite being born as a biological male. The doctor even told David's parents to never tell him or his twin brother what happened to him as a baby. As the twins got older, Dr. Money continued to see them for annual checkups, but it's been said that during these appointments, he would make them rehearse sexual acts as he photographed them. Throughout David's childhood, he rejected anything feminine and consistently showed masculine traits. By the time he reached 13 years old, he was suicidal and his mom realized that he wasn't happy being a girl. Soon after, David's father finally told him the truth and immediately he changed his name from Brenda to David. David then began taking testosterone and going through various operations to rebuild his genitals. But he continued to suffer from psychological trauma throughout his life due to Dr. Money's experience experiment, and not long after, his twin brother passed away. And sadly, at the age of 38, David committed suicide. A lot of people blame Dr. Money for David's death, but his defense is that it was the right thing to do at the time.
This tech CEO was found beheaded in his own apartment. Fahim Saleh made all of his money with a super successful tech company that he created back when he was in high school, and by the time of his death he was actually worth over $150 million. One day in 2020, his cousin went round to his apartment and found him murdered, and it was very clear what had happened. His body was dismembered and separated into different garbage bags. In fact, there was a chainsaw still plugged in next to his body, still covered in blood, and actually police believe that when the cousin arrived and found this scene, the killer was still in the apartment. It seemed that the crime scene was kind of half cleaned up, but they didn't have time to finish, and so maybe they just snuck out of the back door when the cousin arrived. Fahim's personal assistant Tyrese Haspil has been arrested in connection with this case. However, the case is not closed yet, so we can't say for sure if he is the killer. But there's definitely motive there. Tyrese has been caught stealing from Fahim and pretending to be him for years before he died. And after the murder, Tyrese was found using Fahim's credit card and buying cleaning supplies. So I guess we'll see how this trial goes.
You will not believe this insane plot twist. In 2008, Carolyn Watson and Julian Butchwald were a young religious couple. They were living in Melbourne, Australia, and had been together around 2 years. Julian was driving the pair to a picnic date in the car, but he actually stopped the car suddenly, noticing an animal on the side of the road. Suddenly, something horrific happened. Carolyn's vision went completely black after being blindfolded by a terrifying masked man. All she could work out was she was being stripped off and thrown into a vehicle. The car finally stopped and she took her blindfold off, and she was really relieved to see that her boyfriend was by her side. He'd also been stripped off and the couple were completely in the middle of nowhere. The pair managed to untie themselves, but were having to just wander around aimlessly for a week, trying to find safety. Meanwhile, police were desperately searching for the couple. Family and friends were really concerned, and they knew how out of character this was for the pair to go missing. They sent out air and water search teams, but just couldn't locate the couple. As the missing pair were very religious, they'd actually vowed to be celibate until marriage, but Julian started to suggest that it might be a good idea to break this celibacy in order to keep them warm. Finally, a local farmer found the couple and alerted police. However, they quickly found that the story didn't really add up. Julian soon confessed to police that he'd actually made the whole thing up and he'd staged the kidnapping. His motive was purely to try and get his girlfriend to break their vow of celibacy.
I cannot be the only one who hasn't heard about the 10-year-old girl that is facing first-degree intentional homicide charges for stomping on a 6-month-old baby boy's head at a daycare center, y'all. What? Oh my God. Leave a like on this video, follow for more true crime, and check this one out.
A 10-year-old Chippewa Falls girl is facing charges of first-degree intentional homicide in the death of a 6-month-old boy on October 30th.
Injuries sustained by the 6-month boy was not an accident.
This heartbroken father says he can't forgive the 10-year-old girl now accused of stomping on his baby's head.
As opposed to seeing it as a 10-year-old girl, I seen it as the person who killed my son. And she, in my opinion, deserved to be in shackles or handcuffs. She's a criminal.
An imprint of her shoe was found on Jackson's head.
He's having a hard time breathing and his head is swelling.
Jackson fought for his life for 2 days, but succumbed to his injuries.
Now the girl's mother is sharing personal photos and videos.
What's up, guys? Today's my first YouTube video.
Do you think she's been painted as a monster?
Yes, I do.
Is she?
No, she's not. She is beautiful, intelligent, smart, loves to sing, loves to play.
Today in this video, we're going to be playing hide and seek.
She's been locked up for 9 months. This video shows her getting a ride from her father during a visit at a detention facility. She's smiling, but as Dad puts her down, you can see shackles around her ankles. The girl's family says she suffers from mental illness, and they tried to get her help, but were turned away.
They denied my daughter because she wasn't 12 years old.
She was trying to kill herself.
She had indentations, yes.
And you couldn't get her help?
I could not. They sent her home because apparently I'd had an age limit.